Neural networks. How computers imitate our brain. First, let's have a look at the fundamental structure of our brain. This is a human nerve cell. It has synapses that act as inputs and outputs of the neuron. The neuron generates a nerve signal based on its inputs. Those signals get transmitted via the axon. The axon is able to inhibit the nerve signals. These signals are generated through an activation function, also called the action potential. This is a very simplified overview of the structure of the brain. Now we have a look at the equivalent structure in computers. They have inputs which are connected to the artificial neuron, and instead of an axon they have a structure called a weight. The weight is able to boost or inhibit the output of the artificial neuron. The activation function is also different. Computers use a so-called sigmoid function. This function is much easier to compute than the action potential of human nerve cells. Biological neural networks are brains and other nervous systems. Their computer equivalents are called artificial neural networks. How does an artificial neural network work? Here is an example of the basic concept. This is the basic structure of the artificial neural network, but this is not a network yet. We give the picture of a lion as input. The picture is processed by the activation function. The output of the artificial neuron is then inhibited or boosted by the weight. The resulting output should be lion. This is how a true artificial neural network looks like. We have multiple input neurons. This layer is called the input layer. Then we have a layer of hidden neurons called the hidden layer. It is called hidden layer because we normally don't see what's happening in there. Then we have output neurons at the end, which are located in the output layer. In our example we have two potential outputs, one is lion and the other one for tiger. Our neural network should be able to determine whether there is a lion or a tiger in the picture. Every input neuron is connected to every hidden neuron. Every hidden neuron is also connected to every output neuron. Now let's see what happens with the image of the lion. The pixel values are given to the input neurons. The input neurons lead the values to the hidden neurons. The output of the hidden neurons is connected via weights to the output neuron. In this case the weights between the hidden neurons and the output neuron for lion are boosted. The weights inhibit the connection between the hidden layer and the output neuron for tiger. The correct output of lion is therefore selected. This kind of network is called a simple feed-forward network, because the input is simply passed forward to the next layer. Now let's look at a more frequently used network. The input neurons are arranged to form a surface. The hidden neurons are also arranged to form a surface, though there are fewer hidden neurons than input neurons. Lastly, we have two output neurons. 4 of the input neurons, which are arranged in a square shape, are then connected to the hidden neuron. The next 4 are then connected to the next hidden neuron and so forth. The hidden neurons are then fully connected to the output neurons. You can see that the hidden neurons only look at a certain area of the input neurons. This is called a convolution. Therefore, this kind of network is called a convolutional neural network. These networks imitate the function of our eye, because our eye doesn't look at everything in the environment but only at certain parts of it. These networks are really good at image recognition. They are already used today for object recognition in images, or more famously in face recognition for smartphones. The last network type we look at simulates memory. The cells of this network are different. They have the ability to forget or keep information. They are so-called LSTM cells, also called long short-term memory cells. Unlike the other networks, the cells are arranged in a long chain. These networks are most frequently used in language and speech recognition. The most famous example of this network is Google Translate. Another task this network is able to do is music composition, which sounds weird because computers have no creativity, but I will get into that later. But how do the computers learn what a tiger is or what a human is saying? There are two major approaches. The first one is supervised learning. Like the name indicates, this needs a supervisor to observe the network. The supervisor is the data that gets fed to the network. The network generates outputs for the data. The data itself has the correct outputs. These correct outputs are then compared to the outputs of the network. This comparison shows us the network's performance. A network optimizer then optimizes the neural network to improve the performance. This is an imitation of the learning process humans go through in school. In school we learn through examples and exercises. We also get evaluated by tests. The teacher acts as the optimizer because they are teaching us the subjects and correcting our mistakes. Now we have a look at reinforcement learning. Here we have a basic neural network set up. The values of the network get randomized, which leads to a generation of randomized networks. This generation of networks will try to solve a task. The networks then get evaluated and receive a performance score for the task. The network with the highest score gets selected and reinserted as the base network. The whole process is then repeated until a satisfactory performance score is reached. This approach simulates evolution through natural selection. One can say that the base network is like a genetic code that gets mutated through randomization, and the fittest network is then chosen to live on. This is also a way to make these networks creative, because they don't have limitations here. Their approaches to solving the task can be unpredictable and sometimes are beyond human capabilities. Experts are also saying that this is a way to create an artificial intelligence. Generally, one can say that our future will be heavily influenced by these artificial neural networks. They will change our whole transportation industry. Repetitive jobs will be replaced. The whole financial system is already under the influence of these networks that are able to predict market changes. No one can tell whether we will create human-serving artificial intelligences or Terminator-like killing machines.